Seconds now.
Patterson splits it. Goodbye.
Looking, firing, end zone. Oh, what a catch by it! He's in bounds. He's going. 130, 20. He will score. Run back, breaking a tackle and taking it past midfield. An opening kickoff return. Running room right up the middle. Jacobs is on his way. The Raiders are going to win this game.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Appreciate y'all for joining us for another week for the One-on-One Sports Show. My name is Shawnee.
My name is Dante.
And we have a special guest with us today. Go ahead and introduce yourself to the crew.
What's going on, everybody? I'm Kenny Calloway, host of the Calloway Sports Podcast.
Appreciate you joining us today, Doc.
Appreciate that, man.
Oh, man. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all for having me, man.
Yo, so we can,
you go ahead, Dante. You go ahead.
Okay. We could go ahead and get right into it. As you saw from the intro, man. I mean, NFL camps are open. We're there close to NFL Sundays. You know, I know everybody's gonna get excited because some people get really hyped about preseason. I just see it as like hey, you kind of study your team. But we did get some just missed our show last week. We got some big news about finally Dan Snyder's no longer the owner of the Washington Commanders, and he has taken ownership. The major majority owner is Josh Harris. He was the former owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. So he's got some, experience with owning the team. But the main point of this is they just needed Dan Snyder out of there. I mean, he turned a proud franchise and they've been in the dumps, the majority of the 24 years he's owned it.
I was trying to look up. He had like multiple infractions against him, really just from sexual, I guess, workplace misconduct. I want to say I don't want to label it if it's not true. It's like sexual harassment, but I'm not sure. But I know the mistreated in the workplace and whatnot. And he just by far he was just not liked. I heard when he finally sold the team, they threw a party over there in D.C. because they were just so happy he wasn't going to be the owner anymore. And, I remember, I didn't see the whole interview, but I remember seeing a clip of when they was interviewing Magic Johnson and how emotional, he's a part of the ownership group. I don't know exactly the percentage of how much he owns.
4%.
4?
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's big enough because
I'm gonna be honest. What I feel like Magic is because he's made himself as far as being a part of ownership groups. People that don't want to per se be on the marquee, he's been on the marquee. The majority of his life being a great basketball player, then going into business. So I feel like it's one of those deals. It's like if we put Magic, that's just another person to get some of that stench of Daniel Snyder on it. I know they were asking him about the name change, and I was like, it's kind of crazy. He only owns a small percentage of the team, but it's just like that's more of a PR move, and then he's attached to it because he's been attached to owning, professional basketball team and professional baseball team. So he's been a part of ownership groups. He knows how to play the game, and so I felt like the most important part is not him, but just the fact that it's new ownership, and then basically now they get to reset their clock. they finally had got a smidge of credibility bringing in Ron Rivera, but you never found a quarterback. And then you did moves like you got multiple quarterbacks from this draft class that was in Chase Young's getting re-signed the deals, and they did not pick up the fifth-year option for Chase Young. And it's just like, dang, I don't think when you look back at it, you had Herbert you could have taken, you could have Tua you could have taken, and so they gotta live with that. That's gonna wash away because if the owner is aggressive, the kid from USC is from DC,
Hmm.
Caleb
Well,
Williams.
well, it's a different ownership now, so with different
Yeah,
ownership, it's gonna be a completely different.
yeah,
'Cause you seen that happen in with the Suns in basketball.
yeah,
You just see it when different ownership. But I was, because I was about Magic. Yeah, they interviewing him, and he was getting emotional during the interview, and rightfully so because there's never been a black owner. But I never knew how much of a percentage he had, and then find out he got only 4%. I'm like, well, damn,
yeah.
man. I'm thinking the
And
dude get he getting emotional on TV like well, I was like, well, 4%. I guess your name is in the bucket, but I'm like, they throwing him out on TV. He clearly the face of the ownership, but I'm
yeah,
like, what
that's what
decision
they.
making power you gonna have? Man, only four
Nah,
percent.
that's
I
the
was
one
like, oh
thing
hell, man.
I hate.
I'm
I hate
starting to
about
think this
that.
dude got some type of power in the organization, man, because how emotional he
Nah,
was getting. I'm like, well, hell. Oh well, I
Hmm.
guess I'm glad he at least on the boat now. I guess I thought the dude was getting so emotional. He was actually like I thought it was like maybe like a 60-40 type ownership or something. I'm like, oh hell, only 4%.
nah.
Hell,
He got a small piece, but he's gonna
yeah,
do that. So what?
small. You got the crust.
Yeah, he got the crust. So Kendall, what are your thoughts on like? I mean, obviously you root for the you said the Ravens, right?
Okay.
So y'all have a lot of stake in that area. Obviously y'all are all kind of fighting for you know, who people are going to root for and things. So, how you feel about like the change of ownership? Would that make them more of a factor in the DMV area or what?
I feel like I mean it's still early to tell. I feel like have to produce to really show if they can really compete with you know Baltimore and the other teams in that area. I mean, I'm hoping that with this change that they'll be able to just shift their image. You know what I'm saying? Like you guys said, man. I mean, with the owner Snyder, I mean it's been kind of a rough look for them, the lack of team success and things like that. So I mean, me, I feel like it's still early to tell. I feel like over the next few months we'll be able to see, if it's some progress to actually be made.
And I
All
was
right, yeah,
let me see.
I feel like it's going to take a while. But the biggest thing is their stadium is a dump, and they were going to force him one way or the other to sell this team. The
Mhm.
powers that be in the area were not going to finance a new stadium for them. That I had heard that a lot. Like they had put out, he had tried to put out plans that it's going to be, Commanders Park and all this type of stuff. People weren't going for it. I mean, Snyder in recent years had to buy out other minority owners because they just wasn't happy with things. And I knew things were changing when they forced them to change the team. Nike had stripped everything from the website, and then they kind of came up with a new name when they came up with the football team and threw that out there
Mhm.
real quick. And I knew they were in trouble then, and I know that one of the big people that associate with them is obviously from FedEx, and he pulled his ownership. And once I saw that, I was like, that's not just a 4% owner. I know we started that with Magic. That's somebody that owns a sizable piece and is a sizable name in the business world. And I kind of knew it was eventually going to lead to this. And then it's bad enough that you had, just the losing, and then the way you didn't do the team name, but you were treating women wrong. You were going off and doing all types of stuff like that has been proven, by reporting. But the biggest thing, which sucks, it wasn't the women that got him out of there. It was the fact that he was stealing money from the other owners. And so
Mhm.
once that happened, I was like, man, and then you come out and like one of the more powerful owners. I got dirt on Jerry. I got dirt on. It's like, so you're gonna go out yelling out names, and it's like, so they hit him with the $60 million fine, which is, I mean, nothing because he got 6 billion from the sale of the team. So he gets that, but it's more of the going on her when I heard some. I was listening to a podcast and I heard them mention it's not the fact that you get the money, right? Just like Sterling got the money. But
Mhm.
being able to have an ownership, you have to be able to get approved by the other 30 some odd billionaire, 100 millionaires, billionaires to be able to get that access. Now he will never get that access again because your name is sullied. You were stealing money. You were messing up the money in a great market. So it's kind of like more of a reputation thing because I mean they already got so much money it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't
And
think he's
so
a
that's
he's
not
a
the biggest
billion
thing.
he's a billionaire owner. Yeah, he doesn't own that team, but I don't think he'd be hurting at all because how much he sell that thing for? Almost 6 billion.
Yeah,
So that
yeah,
that dude,
it's sick.
I mean, his name is Sully, but he's so rich and stuff like that. If he didn't care what they were saying about him when he owned the team, he was so stubborn on wanting to keep that team, and it just took basically the NFL and all other type of stuff. I think feds looking at him and all this stuff to
Yeah,
get the take the
tons of
team away
stuff.
from him. I'm pretty sure he doesn't really care what people
And,
say about him at all, especially when his pockets just grew another 5 billion.
yeah,
So
I,
it's
I
just
I think it's more
it's
so
just
the
he's just good not
assets.
to be in the league, associated with the league anymore.
And he didn't have to sell it. I'm pretty sure could have outbid the 6 billion. He didn't have to sell it to I'm trying to think of his name, the owner of Amazon. That's who he didn't want to buy it to. They had put that set out several times. He did not want to sell it. He didn't want to sell it to him because it's like as far as media wise, he bought the Washington Post. So when you hear those negative
Hmm.
stories about Daniel Snyder, he has the power
Mhm.
to put that out there about him. And so it's just like, man, he got a little win on that one, but I'm glad to see him go just as far as well, I'm glad and not glad because as a Cowboys fan, it was cool having this a dumpster fire team in the division. It was just like y'all are never gonna get it right. It's cool. It's like we can count on, at least one easy win. The other one, hey, it's a division game if you lose, but normally you sweep them, go on about your business. So it's one of those. They've turned it around. The Philadelphia Eagles have stayed consistent over the last like 20 or so years. They've been pretty solid since they had McNabb. And then, the Giants got an actual coach. Don't have a quarterback yet, but they have a legitimate coach in Dayball. So it's looking like for the first time in a while, all four teams might be somewhat competent. Especially once Washington gets a quarterback. And I I don't know. They thrown it out the name change. I think they should just leave it as it is and just you got rid of Snyder. Leave the name. The name will grow, especially with young kids, especially if they were successful, and just leave it at that. But it's pretty solid. It's been a pretty
I
solid
actually
week for the league.
I actually like the football team.
You did?
I didn't
I,
mind that. I didn't mind that Washington football team.
it was. I'll say this: neither name was as bad as what people made it seem like. I mean, it's one thing to like one YouTuber he'll talk about it. He'll be like the Washington Football Wizards, and he'll say all kinds of stuff. They've had a couple of name changes, but you know, a name is they had the chance to do it the right way, and that's just kind of the stain on his legacy. They've been talking about this for decades. Hey, are you going to change your name? Are you going to do this? And he was so vehemently against it, like not even playing coy about it or anything. Just straight, hey, we're not going to do it. And then he got forced to do it, and then wanted to say he was
Yeah,
dragging his feet to change it.
if it's a name that
He's just a
offended like a population of the country and you still didn't want to do it, I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, he had plenty of stuff throughout his ownership. Just plenty of just situations that just highlighted his character. So I mean, it just show you who he is. But hey, he's no longer part of the NFL no more. I'm pretty sure he probably, if anything bothers him, it's his pride because he didn't want to give it up. But I'm
yeah.
pretty sure that 5 billion or 6 billion, I forgot how much exactly it was, is in his pocket now. I'm pretty sure he living life now like he always was. So hey, let him be now. New ownership. You don't know what type of it may be new ownership. Obviously, Snyder wanted to keep the team in DC, but if they having issues with stadium, this ownership may be willing to move the team. So you don't know. Just different
Yeah.
ownership, different plans. You just don't know. You got the Oakland A's got that with their stuff going through. I don't know if they got new ownership or not, but you can see if a
Nah, it's
city is
been
not
they've been
down with a
this.
team, yeah,
They got the same
they
owner, but
yeah
it's just that they're moving to Vegas just because they couldn't get a deal worked out to build a stadium,
yeah.
to build a
Everybody's
stadium
moving out
in
of Oakland
Oakland.
actually.
Yeah,
Everybody's moving out of
yeah.
Oakland.
Every team has moved out of Oakland. That's the only. I think the biggest thing that they're gonna have an obstacle with, obviously, finding a quarterback is probably the hardest thing they're gonna have a difficult thing with. I did hear from another sports writer. He was like, since they don't play in the in the Columbia in the district, they don't play in DC. The team is always going to be in either Maryland or Virginia. It's going to be in the surrounding areas. So you got all these places bidding for where to put the team. And like, because I heard from guys locally on the radio, it was like, if you actually want to see a game where it is now, flying to Baltimore and then then go to where the stadium is. That's the easiest way to get there. And so, because it's not like going to, even if you go to New York, yeah, you're going straight to Jersey, or you going to LA, you going to Inglewood. So it's something that they got to handle. But I'm pretty sure when you make an investment that big, you know what the challenges are. Hey, we're gonna have to go and get this and that. And Ron Rivera knows, like he's talking. I saw it in the write up. He's like, hey, I got to prove myself to the new ownership. And man, they about to part of that $6 billion he paid. He already knows. I'm gonna have to pay him whatever his contract is worth. Get him out of there and get my own coach. Nobody's safe. The GM, nobody's safe. So everybody is kind of like, hey, it's the euphoria. Like, hey, football started, but then it comes to downside. It's kind of like hard knocks when you come in there and they're like, hey, turn in that playbook. You're on. Everybody's on the bubble. So it'll be interesting to see what moves they make and just to have them, being interesting for, hey, are they going to be a good team or are they going to be competitive instead of everything being successful, everything being who's that guy from ESPN, Don Van Natta. Whenever Don Van Natta is doing multiple stories on you, that's an investigative reporter. It's not good. It's not good at all. I mean, something bad is happening. So,
Well, it looks like we
excuse me.
done got to them Commanders out the way. So next we want to get on this New York Jets. I feel like I'm at ESPN now, focus on these New York teams. But New York Jets and the hype machine, basically that is now Aaron Rodgers, predominantly driven by Aaron Rodgers. And you know, if you watch a lot of ESPN, they talk about the Jets like they like a Super Bowl contender. Yeah, they're talented, but I'm more of a wait and see type fan when it comes to all sports. Um, it's just the hype machine. Or they get pumped up? Do they get pumped up a lot? To me, yes. Hell, but me as a Cowboys fan, I can't say anything about that. Hell, Cowboys. Only thing about the Cowboys, only thing about the Cowboys, nobody really says that the Cowboys are a bad team or have a bad roster. You look at the roster, the Cowboys have talent to make a deep playoff run. They just never do. Something always
Hold
happens.
on, Mr.
Something
Bennett.
always happens. Now the Jets on the other side, the Jets are they can barely make the playoffs. And I guess now that they finally got a better roster, but they whole thing now they couldn't get it right at the quarterback position. Now they finally got a Hall of Fame quarterback who just so happened to be coming off one of his worst seasons in the NFL. I gotta go look at his stats again. But I believe Aaron Rodgers is going to greatly improve that, but it's still a new team. I guess they looking to see how Tom Brady went to Buccaneers and using that as like a roadmap, and people think that's going
And
to happen. Hell, you
Stafford.
got Stafford, but both of those went to teams that was just missing a quarterback piece, but those teams they had a good mix of young talent and vets. The Jets are basically a young team. So now Rodgers, yes, they're established team, but you got to teach that team like the way the way to win per se. Like when you get into the postseason, and because they're gonna be for the first time in a long time a team with a target on their back, and you know how
Yeah.
especially the young team, you don't know how they're gonna respond to that. They have some success, their head may be in the clouds, and so you may say, hey man, bring it back down. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that team now that's been just instantly thrust into the spotlight for a young team. It's gonna be interesting to see how they can go, they can have a deep run, or they can have a damn near a Cowboys run. Will have put up a decent regular season and then flame out in the postseason. So it's gonna be interesting, but yeah, ESPN talk about them enough, so I don't know.
Yeah, man, I'm with you on that, man. I'm real big on I'm gonna have to wait and see. You know, I love Rodgers, but I mean, he is getting up there in age as well. It's a young team. They haven't really proved themselves. I mean, they got good weapons, and I mean, on paper, they look really good, but it's different when you actually have to go out there and play. And yeah, with all the hype they getting, it's a target on your back. So I'm pretty sure that every team in the AFC, the teams that you guys see in the NFC, you know what I'm saying, they're gonna be coming for y'all. So I'm with you, man. I'm with you, full 100%. I'm not to wait and see. I'm not to wait and see. I'm not completely sold. I've seen too many teams in basketball. You know, on paper they look good. They said the same thing about the Brooklyn Nets. On paper they look good. NBA Finals favorites. They said the same thing about Phoenix when KD got traded. So I'm gonna have to wait and see,
Yeah.
man. They have to make me a believer. And the regular season not gonna do it. The regular season not gonna do it. Let me see
Well,
one playoff game at least.
well, what I say with that is, I look at football. I look at football differently than I look at per se basketball. With a player
Mm-hmm.
as good as Aaron Rodgers in basketball, you're supposed to be able to guarantee that you at least make the postseason, or in this place with the new NBA, the play in. And that's why it was such a disappointment with what happened with the Nets, is that you made the playoffs, but you got swept. And so my biggest thing is, can you make the playoffs? My thing is for them is, yeah, it may sound different with Rodgers, but the Jets have a lot of similar to, like you said, the Cowboys or other teams. There's a stigma with them that goes around. Like, I want to say in New York, there's certain teams that's like, hey, the Yankees have the high tradition and the history. The Giants have the tradition and the history, and they've been in a slump, but they haven't been in a slump like the Jets are perpetually in a slump. They get out of fresh because they're in New York. So for them, you're in a division with one of the best quarterbacks and best teams in the conference, with the Bills, which this is the Bills division now. The Patriots were basically an afterthought. Like, I feel like with a competent quarterback, they beat the Patriots last year, but they didn't have one. They had a guy that was just terrible. So I feel like they're going to be competitive. The playoffs is the goal, because you can find out a lot about a team. If you got a 1-5 record against playoff teams, you get to the playoffs, I'm not expecting you to win. But if you're at least 500, and then when you get to the playoffs, it's a lot of how do you execute and a coin flip and luck. Like, that was the biggest thing that we've talked about here in the Dallas Fort Metroplex is, and man, can you consistently make it? The Jets, obviously they got to make it this year. And I know Rodgers, he just signed a 2-year, $75 million guaranteed contract. So they playing with the cap. It's one of those deals. They're going to push the money off, but make sure he's happy now. So he's definitely guaranteed going to be there for, 2 years, but I feel like they can do some things. But looking at their schedule, they start off Monday night hosting the Bills, and then they got to go on the road to play the Cowboys. So then that's the first 2 weeks, and then you got the Patriots who, while they aren't the best team, Bill is going to cook something up and try to make life uncomfortable for Aaron. And probably, I would say, probably their biggest weapon, Garrett Wilson. They're gonna like make things difficult for him. So their first four, so you got the Bills. I mean, you got the Bills, the Cowboys, the Patriots, and then the Chiefs. So that's not an easy 4 game slate. So they have a uphill battle. That's why I say it's not about, hey, make the playoff, show me in the playoffs. For me, hey man, make the playoff. If you make it out of that 4 game stretch, 2-2 or 3-1, I'm impressed. And then then of course and then after that it's the Broncos. It's another team trying to come up, and then you got the Eagles. So they first couple of games is going to tell us everything we didn't need to know. Either it's going to be a dumpster fire, or you're going to look like it's going to be a success. And it's one of those years to where they're playing the NFC East, so you got to face your in-city rival, the Giants. So they have a lot on their plate, a lot of big pressure games that I'm looking. I see only one. I see a 3:25 kickoff. I see a 3:25. I see a Sunday night against when they're hosting Pat Mahomes and the Chiefs. I see a 3:25 against the Cowboys, and then a Monday night. So a lot of primetime games. So if you lose, like you say, Sean, you're gonna have to cover your ears. Well, actually, football season is not as bad, but you're gonna get a lot of Jets talk. I think they sent a Rodgers jersey to Green, so yeah, you're gonna get a lot of Jets talk, man. What's going on, Mr. Bennett?
Mr. Bennett,
What's good, gentlemen? Good evening. Good evening.
how you
Oh, Kendall, I
doing?
don't think I've shared the floor with you. Good to meet you.
Good to meet you, boss man.
Yes, sir.
Before we get to you, Mr. Bennett, we get to these comments. I saw you was commenting about, and appreciate you for joining us as always. Night-ish, appreciate you, and Lady Novell, she's a regular, so we definitely appreciate her for joining. And then I guess right before you join, Mr. Bennett, Mama Carol, I guess she getting on us men because we're talking sports again. I'm like, hey, I can't help it.
What we do? Catch us
I
every
can't
week.
help it.
We have something
So-
to ourselves, can't we?
So, Mr. Bennett, we was talking about right before you came on. We was talking about the Jets now, but our first topic was the Commodore, Commanders. I'm going to say Commodores, Commanders, and they do ownership. So,
Right.
what do you think about now that Snyder is finally officially gone?
Well, they're going to have a massive culture rebuild. So I'm not sure how it's going to. That may take some time before it jives. But what I wanted to talk about a little bit in regards to Snyder is because at the same time, the NBA, and I don't know if this is going to be a topic you want to bring up tonight, but the NBA also approved the sale of the Wizards. So again, another Washington team. The Wizards, I think it's like going to go for like $3 billion. Finalize the sale for Michael Jordan. So, given the dysfunction of the Washington Wizards and of the Commanders, what sale do you think, or what franchise do you think will come out of this better in the near term from it? Because again, I thought Jordan, I just didn't think he was a good owner nor a good GM.
Well, hold on that one, Mr. Miller. Are you talking about the Wizards or are you talking about Jordan and the Hornets?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You're right. My apologies. I keep in my mind he played for the Wizards in his last year. That's my bad.
No,
Yeah,
because he was trying to get into ownership. That's why he was playing for him. But
Right.
They
So again, I'm just looking at both because Snyder. He was out for different reasons. Obviously, he had a very toxic culture and work environment there, and it didn't seem like he was really committed to to building a winning culture there. But same thing with Jordan. So I'm just wondering, like, now that they have been sold, the different entities, I'm still asking myself the question: what franchise do you think will be better, or who can the Hornets now start thinking about building a culture that could be a perennial playoff team or what have you, or the Commanders? I think the Commanders, they might be with all that stuff with Snyder, they were always on the cusp of the playoffs every year. They weren't like a 4-12 or 4-13 type team. But I'm just curious from your guys' perspective, what do you think? Who will benefit the most from the sale, getting rid of either Snyder or Jordan in terms of the future of these franchises?
Me personally, I may say the Hornets, because yes, with Snyder leaving, that will improve the workforce life and all that stuff he had against them about the mismanagement of faculty and staff. But on the field, it's different. I'm not sure if the GM is still going to be there. He the one who's putting that team together. And what Dante mentioned earlier, they have such a hard time finding a quarterback.
Right.
And you can see in the NFL, you can just look at a number of franchises. If you can't find the Commanders are one. You can't find a quarterback because they haven't had a quarterback since RG3 went down, and that was an extremely short period.
Yeah,
and they've been struggling since. So you just don't know. You can have all the other positions.
Actually, I take that back. They actually had somebody that was at least stable and decent, but they didn't do the contract at the right time. Remember, Kirk Cousins went through that. All right, played on the franchise tag, played on it 3 times where it was the max. Where it's like
but
tag
I
on
think
the
better
team.
with the Vikings with them.
Yeah, I think you can see I think there's a ceiling with him. I think certainly with the Vikings, you've seen it. He's had Dalvin Cook for this time. He's had decent receivers and whatnot. So I think there's a ceiling to him that I don't know if you're going to necessarily go any further, especially playing in the East. I don't know how much more juice you would have got out of that if they would have committed to a long-term contract with him.
No, it's just one of those I do highlight to say, hey, they had the superstar they had in place. They squandered that. and then they had a decent guy sworn at that as well. And now they've been in this kind of, and then they haven't even been in that spot to other than the Chase Young year where you can be like, hey, we got a chance to go get one. And, then they have the Alex Smith thing. And it's kind of like sometimes you got to just, grin and bear it and go ahead and take that young guy. But I don't know. I would say, I'm still going to say Washington just because I do like LaMelo Ball, but he has been injured. And then the draft success of the Hornets, Jordan aside, they always get the second pick when it's the guy there. And like I was reading the story getting ready for the show, and it was just like it was reported that Jordan had waited to see if they were going to get the top pick before he officially sold the team. Because it's like you get Wembanyama, it's like, hey, we open for business. And so, I feel that, but it's like people were like down on Brandon Miller and everything like that. It's like, hey, he's the guy that's a wing player that if he's good, he's got a point guard that can get on the ball and they could be a nice duo. But me having question marks about both of them, I got to side with Washington just because we've seen it with football. It is 22 starters. Even if you don't have a quarterback, makes it tough. Build that stout defense and, just have a guy that's decent. You can do okay. In the NBA, man, you got to have a guy that can really move the needle. You got to have two guys that can really move the needle and guys around them. So.
You mentioned the Ball brothers. That's a show in and of itself. You want to talk about 3 years ago? They were like the rage of or 5 years ago. I should go back a minute. Like 5, they were like the rage of the and LeVar Ball, all that hype, and it's like you got two sons who just can't stay healthy, and one can't get into the league. So this kind of sad.
And they were so popular. Nike has the largest share of the shoe market. But when I go to those gyms with my brother, those AU games, they are in those LaMelo Ball Puma shoes. Really? They're in those shoes. He has the pulse. So whenever it happens, when Nike outbids Puma, then all those kids are just gonna go back to Nike, or if Adidas was smart, they would pull them away. But yeah, he's really got a draw of the younger kids. He just being in Charlotte, he's gonna have to do some winning so he can get some more national games. Yeah, because it's like I do like to see him play.
What I don't understand is I went recently to the Big Baller Brand website, and they still want $600 from him for them shoes they're even doing the Suns wear. So I'm like, man, where you gonna get somebody buying those?
Hold on, let me see this commentary session.
Well, because I was about to say, we have Mr. Bennett here. I mean, we appreciate Rashad and Richard all the way from UK. It looked like we have some people who really, because I know we was going to have a little segment about it, but we have some people who really want to get into the Crawford Spence fight. And let me see, because you had Night-ish, he was picking Spence, and then we just got Richard, and he was from UK. He was basically saying that a lot of people are not hyping up the Crawford Spence fight. So
yeah, I mean, they're still not household names yet, unfortunately. I mean, back in the day, like I saw Sugar Ray Leonard fighting Tommy Hearns. I mean, that was 1981. That was fight. But I mean, you had Sugar Ray Leonard. He was the darling of the Olympic Games. He won the gold medal. He's on those if you remember those old 7-Up commercials he was on, and he was just the darling of everything. And then you had the Hitman, who was just knocking out everybody. I mean, everybody's just putting them to sleep. So you had the crossover, and then you had the killer from Kronk Gym in Detroit, and that combination was such where it just became this highly anticipated, because they basically cleared out the division. And it was just like those two guys left standing. So this one here, I mean, certainly for the boxing fan, I still think this fight is maybe 2 or 3 years a bit late, maybe not as late as the Pacquiao Mayweather fight.
Yeah,
but I think that as far as being household names, I still don't think they're quite there yet. You don't see these guys in ads and commercials or in major publications. So it's definitely it's a fight fans fight. But yeah, that crossover appeal that's going to bring people to the I mean, even if you even check their Instagrams, it's not like they're that big. I mean, if you look at early in the year, you had Ryan Garcia fighting Gervonta Tank Davis, and Ryan Garcia, he's got millions of followers. I used to call him the internet, the Instagram champion. But he brought all that, he brought all those followers, and he brought all those guys, to buy the fight, and they did almost like 1.4 million pay-per-view buys. So I definitely think that your these days your social media presence or your mainstream presence, I think it matters in terms of getting everybody interested in this fight, unless you got a country behind you. Like with Pacquiao, it didn't matter who he fought.
Yeah.
He had the whole nation of the Philippines who were going to buy that fight no matter what. So they were always going to do big numbers because he just had that draw. Same thing with Canelo. Canelo Alvarez. He brings Mexico everywhere he goes. So so these guys are in a kind of a unique space. They're from middle of America. I mean, you got Omaha, Nebraska, and Dallas. I know, or Texas. I know that that's a major market, but it's not New York. It's not LA. You're not bringing that major crowd into it. But I think if you're a fight fan, this is what you've been waiting for. And this year has been so good so far. This is arguably, I have to really think about. And I have a listing of the fights that have taken place so far and some of the fights that are upcoming. And this might be one of the best years for boxing in probably over 20, 25 years. It's been terrific.
I know it's kept my interest, because when I was looking up information, because I'm a casual boxing fan, I was seeing that this was obviously, that's the first fight. When I researched, they saw about the previous unification bouts. The first one was Hagler and Robertson, Hearns and Leonard was the first one. They said this is only the 12th unification bout at the welter class divisions. I was like, that didn't seem like a whole lot, but I was reading through the names. I was like, oh, so yeah, it pales in comparison when you put those names, because those guys haven't built their legend yet. So like the names you say, when you bring up Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Trinidad, and the different names I was reading about. So I was like, I'm hoping these guys can come out and put on the show and then grow their fame as they grow with this fight series, because I did see there was the infamous rematch clause, 30 days to go ahead and rematch it. And I did see that Vegas had they had Crawford as the favorite.
Yeah.
And so I would give y'all the numbers as far as betting, but I don't know. I know point spread betting a little bit, but I don't know about boxing betting. I know he was minus something. So he's the favorite. Obviously, Spence being from the area, I'm rooting for Spence. I've seen him fight at AT&T several times.
Mm-hmm.
I saw him fight you guys. I saw him fight his first fight when he came back from the injury. So I'm looking forward to him and hoping. I want to say I bought the Porter fight, but I was just like, you know what? If I like boxing, I'm just big enough, I'll go ahead and buy it. Definitely buy it. I'm either buying this fight or I'm finding somewhere to go to watch it. It's like if he's gonna give me some action and some big names, I'm down for it. And so, like, I have seen that.
So you guys don't do fight parties. See, back in the day,
back in the day, we did the fight parties.
$15 a head, and your stuff was covered.
Yeah, the days when I remember the last fight party I might have went to might have been like Roy Jones back in the day. Because I was like, we watched his.
I think the last one I've been to was back when Mayweather.
I'm gonna have about here.
Actually, I take that back. It was a crawfish boil, but they definitely had the fight that was just on with Tank Davis. I definitely enjoyed that fight. So it's like that guy. Once you see a couple, it's like, hey, when they come up, and especially if boxing gets it right, and it's one every 2 or 3 months, at least one a quarter, then it's just like, yeah, let me go ahead and see this. And then with ESPN Plus and ESPN having boxing, having the free fights does help. Like having it and being able to see guys and develop. Because I want to say I saw the guy fight. I can't remember their name. Can't remember his name. It might have been Shakur Stevenson. He was fighting on the other side of the world against that guy and in his home and whooped him. I was like, oh, so you came over to his house and handled business. Like that was impressive.
Yeah.
I mean, me personally, I do feel like as far as the fight not being as hyped, I guess for me being like a hardcore boxing fan, like so like you said, boxing fans have been really waiting for this fight. I'm hoping that this will be the fight that takes them to the next level. When you said as far as Sugar Ray and those guys being in the ads and the commercials, I just feel like the landscape of boxing has changed so much where like guys only focused on the payday from boxing. They don't venture out and look to build their so what I'm looking for, like their
Their brand.
Yeah, the brand. You know, I see a lot of guys just going into um, being their own bosses now. You know, Floyd pretty much set the standard. So I would like to see, you know, boxers getting back to that though. You know, obviously I didn't grow up in that era, but you know, my dad and my uncles they tell me about it all the time. But as far as the fight, I'm hoping that this will be the fight because on paper and just based off of what these guys bring to the table, you got, you know, Bud, number one pound for pound fighter in the world, in my opinion, and Earl is top three. I put Earl number three. So obviously, hardcore boxing fans have been wanting this fight for a long time, and with the mentality that they bring to the ring, I mean, this is for sure fireworks. I would be, I mean, it would be very very rare not to see like action in this
Yeah.
fight. You know,
I don't think it's in. I don't think it's in their DNA to play to be passive. So
Yeah.
yeah.
action pack.
Good.
Hey, what's up, Poppy? What's up, KP? Appreciate y'all for joining
What's
us.
going on, fellas?
What's up,
Hey,
guys?
yo, what's good, family?
What's good, sir? Good to see
Long
you.
time no see, man.
Hey, man, I got tired of whooping y'all asses, man. Y'all have some horrible takes. And I'm
Man,
allergic to cowboy. I'm allergic to cowboy fans, man. So I have to get the hell out of here.
man, we
But I'm
we
back.
Everybody
I'm
got
week
back.
one
Cowboys in their
we
mind,
gonna
man.
handle y'all up again. So you already know how that go. Don't show up. Don't show up week one. After week one, that's gonna be bad for you. You already know.
I ain't worried about it.
But that,
Y'all gonna win a Super Bowl. Y'all gonna win a Super Bowl on February 31st.
hey,
Hey,
man,
hey,
it's too. I don't talk about Super Bowl talk too early,
we
man.
don't talk about Super
I'm
Bowls,
we at
man.
training camp. I'm good on. I'm
We
good
got
on
a
that.
30-year drought
Let
back
me
there. You don't
say
even talk about Super
let me
Bowls.
say it one more time. It's February 31st. Y'all gonna win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I hear you. I
What
appreciate you
does that feel
standing
like?
on that. I
What does it feel
appreciate
like the kiss of death?
you. So KP, I want to mention a comment that you made. You were talking about like as far as UFC being a factor and like how boxing and in the popularity. I'll say this: I can't sit down and watch a bunch of UFC. I'll watch some, but I will say, other than the way they pay their fighters, I like their business model of giving you fights. Like I got
Yeah.
ESPN Plus, and it feels like every other week they got a fight going. And I remember I used to follow a radio host that did UFC, and he was always talking about, "Hey, we got this fight, we got this guy, we got Daniel." I'll say with Daniel Cormier was real big, and so it's like they got fighters and characters that you want to see, but it's like boxing has to take a page take a page out of their old book or take a page out of UFC's book and get more of the fights they need to see. And then I wanted to press one more comment. I was saying, let's see, yeah, Richard, you said I don't think the car crash at this point. I'll say this: if they fought around the time of that, like I saw that first fight back, and I could tell, even from that's just not the most experienced boxing. I was like, hey, dog, you resting. And then the first rounds, I saw it there, and then he was better against you guys. I was like, oh, okay, yeah. When I saw that fight live, I was like, yeah, you ready? Let's do it.
He beat the brakes off of Ugas. I felt so bad.
Yeah,
He busted his face so bad.
that was rough. That looked like a movie. That looked like a
elephant
movie.
man after that fight. Goodness.
Earl's a punisher, man. He's a
Well, I think with boxing now, man, it's just in a place where since it's not structured right, it causes fans to lose interest. This is the time frame where everybody has everything on their phone. Boxing doesn't feed its fans. UFC does. You know what's going to happen with UFC. It's almost predictable. You win this fight, you're going to fight this guy next. It doesn't matter what you want to do. The fans are going to get what they want. So boxing is just like a free for all. It's almost like it's going out of business every month. Like they'll sell you Ryan Garcia versus Tank Davis like they just did. But when's the next time you're going to see Tank Davis in the ring with Devin Haney, Shakur Stevenson, anybody like that? You really don't know.
Two more
You kind of
times.
hope it
Two more
happens.
times. It's gonna happen 2 times.
Yeah.
Book it.
No, you're 100% correct because I've wanted to see this fight for years. We wanted, there's other fights that you hear. Hey, it's whispered. Like this fight has been at least, hey, it's about to get finalized 3 times by boxing people on Twitter. You seeing them, and that's why at this point I was like, I don't believe it. I need to see the paperwork. I need to see them shaking hands. I need to see a press conference. And when I saw it, I said, okay, now I'll be excited.
Just think about this,
The
guys.
problem with
We didn't
boxing-
get
the
Wilder
problem
and
with
Joshua when they were undefeated, bro. We didn't even get Wilder and Joshua when they were undefeated. That's how dumb boxing
The
is.
problem, the problem with boxing is until the promoter doesn't go away, it's gonna continue the same. Like De La Hoya, what is it? Golden Promotion, Golden Boy
Gold,
Promotion. They need to get out of the way. Bob Arum, you need to get out of the way. Mayweather, now his force, he got to get out of the way. You see what I'm saying? But now they pretty much monopolize the whole sport, bro. So they give you every time they give you a fight, it's gonna be a fight 7 to 10 years later. Look at a Mayweather and Pacquiao fight. That fight happened literally a whole decade later. They're supposed to fight 3 times. They were the best at the time since 2007. Wanted to see that fight. It didn't happen. And that boy Mayweather ran from Pacquiao for like 5, 7 years too. So that I don't.
Hey, man, I'm not about to debate the history of Mayweather Pacquiao, but I tell you what, boxing got a serious problem, and I don't see it changing
Super
because
problem.
UFC is going to continue to get popular because everybody knows where it's at. It's on ESPN. You don't have to search for it. Boxing. If I ask you guys where do the PBC fight their fights at, most guys maybe know because they're hardcore fans, but everybody don't know.
I don't think it's a much of the fence, bro. I'm telling you, the promoters get out their way, and it takes literally a Mike Tyson kind of talent to come in and rule. Because the
That's not
only time
happening
that boxing
anymore,
is
bro.
good,
Yeah,
the only time that
the
boxing is
politics
good is when the heavyweight champion is good, and it's American on top of that. The heavyweight champion is a bunch of white
Not
boys from
necessarily.
somewhere else.
Not necessarily, because
It
you
does
figure
matter.
in the 80s, it was the welterweights and the middleweights that carried boxing. In the 80s, you had that long run by Larry Holmes, who he was I mean, he
Yep.
was certainly succeeding Muhammad Ali. Undefeated
But you had
record,
Hagler and Leonard, them, yeah.
great
Mhm.
fighter in his day, but he wasn't entertaining. I think the biggest fight of his career was when he fought Jerry Cooney, and they built up the Great White Hope thing back in the day for that fight. But it wasn't like he was must see TV. But it was definitely Leonard, Hagler, Hearns, that group
Yes.
of guys, Duran, those guys carried boxing in the 80s. So it's very similar. I think what you're seeing now is something very similar, where you got the lightweights and the welterweights. They're the ones who are mostly carrying it.
That
There can still be some
Dr.
buzz
Bennett.
heavyweight if you get these guys together, but I don't think boxing is necessarily dependent on those guys to come up because I don't know what Fury's going to do.
Dr. Bennett.
He's
The
fighting.
Yeah, I mean, I
history
feel
of
like
boxing.
the
The history of
this is the
boxing
best
tells you
division has
box,
been in
boxing
years.
is as good as the heavyweight fight, bro. That's what it is. And trust me, this is coming from somebody. My favorite boxer of all time is Marvin Hagler. That's my man right there. You see what I'm saying? But if the heavyweight boxer is not a American, especially a black American, boxing lose interest. That's you gotta look at the component. Look at since the 60s and 70s. You see what I'm saying? Look at down the history and then come back to me and tell me if I was right or wrong. The last heavyweight boxer that actually kind of make sense was Lennox Lewis, black boxer. You see what I'm saying?
I understand what you're getting at, but the problem is this: America is becoming multicultural every year, more and more. So this thing where black men are kind of ruling the heavyweight division, that's kind of going to be extinct. Because the way that boxing is set up, you're not getting paid the same way. So most athletes are not even going into boxing anymore. They're going to play basketball for a guaranteed contract. I ain't no way in hell I would send my son to go fight if he can play basketball. No way.
I think
I don't know. I don't know if it'll.
well, now I think bringing up a point that Kendall and Ken, I don't know if you saw Mr. Bennett's message in the chat because at one time you were sounding like a little bit muted and whatnot. But he brought up an interesting point, kind of similar, because Dante, I'm just a casual boxing fan, but on the team sport side, it's an issue where it looks like a player is more focused on their brand than their actual craft. And when he was saying that about boxing, it made me think about players in the team sports and what KP just mentioned, how, you know, I guess if they looking at they'll rather go play another sport. Now it can be like a concern of health, because of the down the line the health problems that boxing can cause, money. I'm not exactly sure. I understood what Poppy was talking about because I look at it, I guess, with boxing. I always hear when I hear about it being reported on different news stations and whatnot. I always hear like the influence of promoters. It's like a negative effect on a negative aspect on boxing, where in UFC it's basically everybody's under the same boat. There's only one top dude, well, one office dude who's basically making the decisions, and it's just easier to make the fights instead of with boxing. The promoters and they influence it became an obstacle that really, because I remember, Mr. Ben, what you was talking about in the '90s and just how big fights were. People, the way Super Bowl parties are now is how boxing fight parties were back then.
Right.
Now I don't know if it's one of some of the promoters or what over the years.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think over the years it's a couple of these. One, the fights that weren't made. I think what destroyed heavyweight boxing back in the day was when Lennox Lewis didn't fight Riddick Bowe. I think that set boxing, especially the heavyweight division,
There you
go. At least 10 years. That was the fight that should have been made because you had the two. They were the apex. Bowe just beat Evander Holyfield for the heavyweight title. Lennox Lewis, he was certainly on the descent. They met in the Olympics, so that should have been the fight that should have been. And you could have had like a trilogy with those two guys that would have carried most of the 90s into the 2000s. But instead, we were treated to the Klitschko's, which nobody was really feeling except in Europe. So that was a major blow to boxing. So fights not getting made because of selfish interests of the fighters. And then you got the networks, because again, usually a promoter works with a network. So again, Bob Arum is not going to work with Eddie Hearn from Matchroom because again, it's a conflict. Golden Boy is done. Golden Boy is done, and Mayweather's quite frankly, because again, you're only as good as a promoter as your staple. He just lost his biggest fighter in Ryan Garcia. So again, those guys are just barely hanging on for dear life. So the big guys right now, it's certainly if Arum, especially after, I don't know if you guys saw the fight Tuesday morning with Inoue versus Fulton. That guy is easily in the top. You can make an argument he's in the top 3 pound for pound. Some guys already calling him pound for pound number 1 in the world. He was devastating in this recent fight with Fulton. But Arum, he's got him, he's got Shakur. Haney's a free agent, so he can fight on his network anytime that he wants. You got them, you got Showtime, you got Eddie Hearn. I mean, those are really the big 3 promoters out there in the world. I know you got this Saudi Arabian outfit that just signed Usyk. But again, they got money. I mean, they can pay guys $40 million to go out there and fight or whatever. But and then I think even the guy Frank Warren, I think he has Fury, but that's about it. On his. So you only got a few guys who are controlling things, but it's always a measure of if you talk about it's not just the promoters, it's the networks that they fight on, and they got obligations. They got to go to the network. That's what makes these fights so hard. So Haney's in a great position right now because he's a free agent. He can fight on any network he wants. Same thing with Tank Davis. He get it to Showtime, but he's not as so. And Wilder's also a free agent. He can fight where he wants also. So I think that might be the model going forward to help boxing out, is where a lot of these guys don't get so tied down to promoters where the promoters are dictating where these guys can fight at. Being a free, work with a promoter for a while, but become independent so you can make the fights that you want to make. And I think that'll help boxing go a long way in terms of, us getting these matchups that we want when, you can just go. Because the networks, all they're concerned about is just, look, who's going to be getting the Showtime or whatever. That's all they're concerned about. So if I can be free to deal with whoever I want. I think that's the future.
I'll also say this.
That was some of
Me personally, I do believe that it's too many belts in boxing. It's far too many belts. And you got all these guys that's fighting for belts that don't even matter, and with the belts and the promoters and all of these, you got the zone, you got guys who fight with Matchroom, you got Showtime, and I won't say Floyd ruined the game, but he did play a factor. And as far as the money goes, now we hear this thing of A side and B side. You got a fighter who feels like, hey, well, I did these numbers with this guy. I should be the A side. I should make this much, and I feel like that's a big reason why we're not getting fights made. That was the main reason that was, holding up Earl and Bud. Earl felt like he was the A
Yeah.
side. Well, Bud felt like, well, I've done this in my career. I feel like I'm the A side. So, you got these guys that, feel like they're entitled to, 70-30. I feel like it's a big reason why we most likely are not going to get Shakur versus Devin in the near future. Devin sent Shakur offer for basically take 25%. And Shakur said, "Hey, I'm worth more than 25%." I'm not saying he's wrong for that, but it's things like that that's
Right.
making boxing really tough to watch. It's the reason
Right.
that's one of the main reasons why we're not getting these fights, and that's why people start to tune in. I'm a big UFC guy too. I started watching UFC maybe like in 2009, and it
Mm.
was easy because
And
it's the best have to fight the best. You got one guy, Dana White. He has his guys that he works with to make fights.
Hmm.
It's easy,
And they got
it's
one
not
belt.
really
now
prestige.
for
Exactly.
Hmm.
Kendall,
They have
Kendall, hold
one
on.
belt.
Kendall, hold on. For someone who is not only a big UFC fighter, come on, UFC big fan. I'm almost an MMA fighter as well. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing about MMA fight, we have too many promotions that allow a lot of fighters to compete. Besides UFC, there used to be WEC before it got bought out by the parent company of UFC. Now
Mm-hmm.
you got one PC and got another fighting league whereby one of my favorite fighter left UFC and joined that division. But what's going on is this. They have multiple fighting promotions across the globe.
Right.
One PC is doing something that UFC is not doing. Yes, you have a lot of fight set up, but you have two different types of division fight. You have the regular MMA fight, and you have the kickboxing fight that have only one PC. In the
Mm-hmm.
other league, you had a mixture of MMA, a little bit wrestling on the feet. To have one of your best female boxers want to join into MMA, that said a lot. Because she realized the the grab of getting recognition is different because if you look at history, I hate to say this, boxing has always been a rival to MMA. Way back
Mm-hmm.
before television came to existence. Look at history. And I knew that I was telling people you have to do your homework. What was going on with these two different sports? Boxing has been here long enough, but wasn't as long as MMA. But when they brought boxing to the Asian community, when they were over there, to make it look like the Asian community weak, it drove a wedge whereby look at today right now. If you want a list of how many promotions you have in MMA right now, at one point you'd be like 4 or 5. Now you got like almost 8, 10, 15 because they're different divisions in MMA. You have people that do Thai boxing, kickboxing, you have people with mixed martial arts, which require boxing, grappling, and kicking, right? That is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if everybody know about the old UFC back in the day, there was no weight division. You have people from the lightweight fighting with the heavyweight, with the authentic, which is also the underground MMA, but nobody pay attention to though. It'd be like 4 or 5 underground MMA promotions that only the wealthy and the rich knew about. Pride PC was one of the ones that came from underground to the top, but mostly regulated. Everybody who know about it will tell you can't mention who's regulated the fight because if you were to mention, chance it is, wherever you live in the world, they're going to find you. So even they come here to keep their mouth shut on that because they know what's going on. Some of the fight that was regulated, it got how you say flipped on his hand. For example, Rampage. They set the fight up for him to lose, but he ended up winning. But they could have hold him back for that because this is what the guys do. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
fighters who left Pride PC went to UFC, some went to WEC before it got bought out. Now you look at what's going on right now. UFC have a dilemma. Yes, they're the number one division when it comes to MMA, but one PT is catching up fire behind their back. And I forgot the one. Was it TLFC? I think that's the one that my boy Ngannou went over
Is
because
it the PFL?
yeah,
Yeah.
here what I knew what the problem with UFC. They weren't paying the fighter properly well. They have a lot of great fights.
Catching up
I'm
to him. It's catching up to him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and I'm at the MMA make martial art my practitioner into it. I watched that fight like a sign. I could tell when some people are cookie cutter and some who got the gift could stay there longer. And that's what the problem comes to MMA. MMA, you can't just copy and think you can do whatever you want there, but the art, the style, the unique, the training, and the conditioning is a whole different ballgame. That's why some boxers are looking at, saying, you know what, maybe I should go to UFC. I can just learn some kickbox, I can learn some grappling. If you have boxing down pat, you can survive a little bit longer in MMA. The problem you have is people who have Greco or Jiu-Jitsu background. They will get you. If you want you got thigh boxing, they will get you. You have to be fast enough. But the thing is, a lot of MMA fighters are going to boxers for the training lesson to keep up their boxing game. This is why MMA, UFC, and all these other promotions are going out of control. They get I'm looking for that exact word. The level of popularity is just ridiculous. It makes no goddamn sense. You could be from Thailand and you have a massive following. You bring that to any promotion, it's a wrap. You could be coming from Kenya, you got your own match. Anyone from any country who the MMA fighter who build their name from their local region come into the promotion, it blow off the hinges. Boxer cannot do that no more. And the problem with boxer, I hate to say that Don King making up for you guys from the earlier years. All the original fighting, all the drug testing. MMA keep it simple. You got one system of drug testing, you follow it or you don't.
Mhm.
And they did that because of, how you want to put this? Not too long ago, they removed the ban for MMA fight to be in New York City. They were fighting in every other state, every other city besides New York City. New York City, they want to be like the only dumb city because look at the money they pull in. White was a slick bastard. He knew what we were doing. He would say, well, I can't pay all these fighters X1. He can pay them, but there's something else that was going on. He's trying to buy out other competitions. He was doing the Vince McMahon move, but somehow, what I was reading, how the Pan Company bought WWE, and they're thinking of merging both of them together. I don't think that's gonna work.
Oh, Endeavor.
Yeah, Endeavor. I practically make much sense with the can. And one time I understand you can't take two different origins of sport and want to merge it. It's not going to work because wrestling is semi real, semi fake, but it's more orchestrated. MMA is straight up. There's no script, there's no nothing. Either you duke it out, you know what the hell you're doing, you're good. If you don't, you get knocked out either by a punch or kick or you get tapped out. Either of the three. And I'm trying to figure out how that's going to work because I look at the time. Boxing and MMA, it can work. As you can see, there have been rivalry going on for almost a decade now. Randy Couture. Who do you tap out? Was it not Tony? One of the legend of boxers? Yeah. That rivalry.
Well, speaking of which, I think there's isn't Fury fighting the guy from UFC, the heavyweight champ?
Yeah, that's Ngannou. But here's the thing. Ngannou take a lot of training. Right now. One thing is, I have a bad feeling because knowing it, MMA and boxing, they had a rivalry going for so long. If they take you in your boxing stance, they want you to fight in their own stance. Mayweather was lucky not to do that. When he fought McGregor,
he said he wasn't. I heard him say he wasn't going to do that. And I respect him for what he wanted.
No, even before he even said that, I knew he ain't gonna lie. There's a reason why I'm saying that. Go back in history, a lot of boxers make that same mistake. They thought they can fight people on their own turf and come to MMA. MMA, you have your hands, you got your foot, you got your knee. Depending on what promotion they might let you use your elbow. Right? In boxing alone, it's only fists. Mayweather have that turf hand down against McGregor. If you would have come to MMA, well, the chance is Mayweather would have been broken. He could get a couple of kicks to the ribs.
Yeah, I think that's why boxers don't go fight.
No, but
they don't go over there. You gotta know,
yeah, they don't go over there.
That's just smart. That's smart.
It's the MMA fighters that want to come in the boxing domain.
I know, but
that's the biggest thing, and that's what I think. That's what MMA, as good as their business model is for them, they have to make their model better for the fighters because what's his name was one of the biggest MMA fighters, but he knew I'm not getting a bag over here. I need to go fight Mayweather. Mm-hmm. You know, I need to go fight Mayweather, and I need to go sell my liquor. But
Yeah,
because it's
and he
like
was
I
the
gotta
highest.
get
I mean,
paid.
clearly, he was the highest paid, arguably,
And
of all his fighters. I mean, he
he
was
was
certainly
because talking
the
about
number one
22
guy.
mil
So
plus on one fight alone compared to how many fights he had to get 22
yeah,
mil. That
yeah,
was a
And
big
then, I
deal.
mean, when you factor in a lot of the fighters who kind of helped Dana, build the UFC to where it is now. You think of guys like, Liddell and Silva and, all of these
Chocolate
guys.
out. Don't forget
It's,
Chocolate out,
it,
the
Mm-hmm.
Iceman.
they weren't making a whole lot of money. It's still guys,
They weren't,
today,
but
champions today,
No.
that's still not making a lot of money. So I do believe that is why we are seeing more of them crossing over to boxing. Let me get some of this boxing money.
and
I mean,
that's the
despite
reason
what boxing is as a whole, the money is still in boxing.
it
I feel you
it
still
only
guaranteed to get two million or
it
more.
it's only rare that a boxer go into MMA and also come back out. And the only person who did that was Anderson the Spider Sylvia. We realized before he got into MMA, he was a boxer.
The boxer, yes.
He was dangerous as a boxer. He got into MMA and he got even better. They went back into boxing, which was kind of really crazy though. Now, my favorite guy, the Starbender, Adesanya, straight
I'm
kickboxer from the
telling
very
you, boxing
beginning.
as well.
He was kickboxing. No, he did boxing first, then did
Mhm.
kickboxing, then got into MMA. That level of flexibility is not normal because it's not that easy. Because when you talk about three different arts, talk about boxing have a whole fundamental by itself. Kickboxing is a whole different fundamental. And you go to mixed martial art, he taking two of the class that he had at an advantage point to get into MMA. He mastered boxing, you understand the boxing skills. He mastered kickboxing. When he comes to UFC, there's the reason why he able to, I hate to say, he is braggadocious. He have the backing to do so because everybody keeps saying, I watch the fights a lot. If your hand games are not good, chances is go for the grappling. That's the only way out because you're not going to stand up and somebody barrage you with both punch and kick. But some of these guys kick can break a baseball bat. Let's be real. You all seen some of the fight in UFC. People broke their shin bone.
Mhm.
This is why I'm talking about the
Yeah.
conditioner. No boxer can. This is why I hope every boxer do their homework before they transition in. So some of these fighters that are coming into MMA are not to mess with. Forget their
Well,
hand. Think about the legs.
I have a question for since we got two boxing followers with Mr. Bennett and Kendall. How y'all feel about because I mean we talking about fighters whether it's boxing or MMA or wherever, but if they come from another country and they be bringing their country, it's a whole lot of followers they bring it with them. Well, hell, you can say the same thing about these damn Paul brothers. That old social media crowd, or you know what they're so. How do y'all feel about them coming to boxing? Yeah, you don't look at them like the traditional boxers or true boxers, but I keep forgetting which one is it, Logan or Jake.
Jake,
But they appear now, me from
Jake
the
Paul,
outside, they appear to be taking at least the craft seriously. You know, they get in the
Jake Paul
shape
is the younger
when they get
one.
in. So how do y'all feel about them and what they're doing? Are they making a mockery of the sport because they not really choosing to fight these established boxers? They washed up, or whether these dudes washed up MMA, whoever they fighting, it's just not legit fighting. Besides when one of them fought Mayweather, you
In
know.
case you want
But
to know who is who, Jake Paul is the younger brother. Logan
yeah, 'cause I
Paul
know
is
the
one of
other
going
one.
back to
I know the
he
other one.
going
He
back
was
and
doing
forth
like his
with
wrestling
boxing
thing.
and wrestling. He's doing both. He's
Yeah,
playing both sides, so that kind of
he
thing.
getting paid too. I know that.
And I
So
heard Jake
hey,
Paul lost his last fight against Fury brother, younger
yeah,
brother, I
me
believe.
yeah,
personally,
we have
He
I'm
a
did.
not a big fan. Some people feel like, oh, well, they're bringing more eyes to boxing. I, Me personally, I don't think so. Just off the fact, just like you said, the one time Jake actually fought a pro boxer, he lost. I feel like what he's doing is very smart, and he's making a lot of money doing it. You get into boxing and you fight old washed up MMA guys, and you're selling on pay per view, you're gonna make money. But I do feel like it's a slap in the face to boxing. Especially to us pure boxing fans. It's a saying that goes around. You don't play boxing. And I'm not sure if he.
No.
I mean, he talked a good game to say, hey, well, I'm taking this serious, and I'm gonna do this long term, and I want to fight this guy, I want to fight that guy. I don't see it happening. You know, it's just a whole lot of talk. But me personally, I'm not a big fan of the social media, age or era of
Exactly.
boxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
I
why
would like to enjoy
we
that.
got to make a distinction between crossover and social media. So, like I said, these guys are clearly social media stars. They built their brand in social media and then simply just applied it. So the people who are watching their fights are the people who they're bringing with them. They're definitely not appealing to the pure box fan. Like, I refuse to watch. Like I didn't order
Same.
the Mayweather fight. I with
No, I hate. Bennett, hold on. That Mayweather and Logan fight, it was set up.
no. It's like I'm saying go over the original one, Mayweather and Connor. I didn't order that because especially the way they were acting in the press conferences and whatnot was just very distasteful. They just kind of went to the gutter with it. So I refused to buy that. But I stopped buying Mayweather fights really probably around his 40th. After the Pacquiao fight was probably the last Mayweather fight that I bought. That was the last major fight party that I had. I think I had a couple for Deontay Wilder, but I stopped with the Mayweather because it just got into a point where he was just fighting guys either at the end of their careers or whatnot, snooze fest, 12 rounds, get the win and get out. So it wasn't very entertaining. But I think with the Paul brothers, I think they're certainly bringing their fans to it, but they're turning off the true boxing fan. And likewise, you got the issue where you have the boxing fan is not necessarily pulling in the mainstream. So when you talk about who is actually doing that, so again, Ryan Garcia certainly was one of those guys who certainly, people knew who he was. They respected him as a fighter, and he had a social media presence that he was able to bring with him. So he's one of the few guys who's been really successful at doing that. Gervonta Tank Davis, his social media is pretty decent. Devin Haney, he has a decent one, but the true crossover star is going to be the one. Can you, bring both the boxing fan and the mainstream together? Like I said, Sugar Ray Leonard, Hagler, all those guys, they were able to bring everybody from every walk of life into the event based on the media of the time. Now, then it was, like I said, it was print media, it was TV commercials, it was, that's what brought those guys, brought everybody into the game. Now, social media, I think, is really taken over from conventional mainstream media right now. So I don't mind that, but I think that just a lot of these fighters, I think they really need to pay attention to their craft as far as building their brand. But again, if you look at both of these guys, they're not necessarily civil. I mean, Crawford's got 7 kids. He's a family guy. He just hangs out with his family, and that's it. He's not trying to be a media star like that. You see him coming to the press conferences. He's coming to hair's not. He doesn't have the line trim cut or whatever. He's coming with an afro. He's coming with just a polo shirt on. He's not. He's not Madison Avenue. And then Crawford, for everything I've seen from him, he's a pretty humble guy. Again, family guy. The only pictures
Not a big trash talk.
Is birthday parties for his kids or whatever. You know what I mean? But he's not trying to sell. They're not selling anything sexual. He's not doing the open shirt stuff or whatever, or the sexy poses or whatever. That's just not who these guys are. So I think that there's very few true stars. Now, up to a time, I would have said Deontay Wilder was definitely becoming a star simply because of the fact that he was just knocking people cold with one shot. I mean, that was that YouTube. That was you haven't
That's
seen.
what got my attention.
Tyson. Yeah, because it was like don't blink, because just that one, he could be losing the fight, and then he lands that right hand. He was knocked out, and it's just like, oh my god. So
it sounds cool,
just waiting
in
for
that way. But
that?
as I watch him fight, it showed one issue. He lacked the fundamental of boxing. That one, he was a slugger.
Yeah,
and when he fought with people who knew the perfection, you see what happened with that knockout punch. You couldn't utilize it. So when you talk about
he's only had trouble. He's knocked out everybody else except Fury. Fury has been his kryptonite. Everybody else has taken it.
That's been the problem.
He got exposed.
Yeah,
that one hurt.
He's the only guy to knock Fury down. The last fight that he got knocked out in, he knocked Fury down like 2 or 3 times. So he's always going to bring something to the table that you're looking for something that's going to be exciting. So again, that's the other part. If you could be exciting, But I just,
Same
you know,
thing
just
with Tank Davis.
power. That's gonna benefit you as well. But there's very few guys who have that, who have all those cards, aces that they can play on. So again, so this fight, I would be shocked if it got over 1 million buys. I'm looking more maybe about 600,000-700,000 buys. That's what I would guesstimate that this would get. But for who these guys are, I think they'd be getting the maximum of their value. But if they got over 1 million buys, I would honestly feel very good if they got that, because then you're getting some mainstreamers and we get over 1 million. But 600,000-700,000 is what I'm guesstimating that they're going to get as far as pay-per-view buys for this fight.
I would
I'll just
also
say
say
this.
this because I feel like I, for me, growing up in boxing, I was in that kind of like that Mayweather era, and Floyd is my favorite boxer. And what I really enjoyed that Floyd did was that he would sell a fight. I think that's what a lot of guys are missing today. Floyd would sell a fight. Like he took on the role of, hey, I'm gonna be the bad guy. As long as it gets me paid, Floyd always said, you either gonna pay to see me win or you gonna pay to see me lose. Regardless of the situation, you pay your money to come see me. And I think that's what a lot of fighters are missing now. Is you gotta sell a fight. You have to sell a fight. If you want your money, I'm not sure if we're gonna see too many people bringing in that money that Floyd, brought in. Floyd was bringing in almost 30 million plus every fight. The only guy that you're saying doing close to that is Canelo. That's about it.
Yeah, he brings
Yeah.
a nation. It's hard when you
Yeah,
bring
Bring
in
the
a
country.
nation.
he's
Yeah.
bringing the
That
country
draw is
home.
crazy because, and I know we got to finish up here, man. So Shawnee, you got anything else you want to add, man?
No, I was just saying, since we got to make way for the next show, we can real quick give our predictions. And my predictions, I have Crawford by the decision.
Got Crawford.
I got Spence by decision.
Things about the season. Mr. Bennett.
Wow. This, I'm still breaking this fight down. I think this fight is going to go down to two things for me. One, when I see Spence on the scale, I've been seeing him train. He's very ripped.
He's in shape.
And the thing is, he even said this is probably going to be his last fight at 147. So for me, what I'm going to be worried about is he going to starve himself to get lean enough to get into this fight? If he does that, he can certainly be in trouble. I'm leaning Crawford, but really, especially after watching the Inoue fight, I recommend. I think it's already out there on YouTube. Definitely go back and check out the Inoue fight, because I think that was really the model that I was looking at when I saw this. That if Spence comes out early, similar to what he did with Ugas, and he just beat the brakes off of Ugas, not give Crawford a time to get warmed up, because Crawford will take a couple rounds before he gets started. But if Spence is able to take control of the fight early and put hurt on him seriously, where he can't get into his mode or really hurt him early, where he's going to have to abandon his fight plan and just try to survive, then I could certainly say, well, I'll put it this way. In both cases, I think it's ending in a KO. Either Spence is going to KO Crawford, or Crawford is going to KO Spence. If Crawford can get past 5 rounds, he's going to KO Spence. So for me, that's the thing. What is this first 5 rounds going to look like? Because also, again, depending on how ripped Spence is, I think he's got 5 rounds in the tank. Where if he doesn't take control and dominate the fight by then, Crawford, if you give him time, he figures out the Rubik's Cube. And once he figures you out, then he can switch up. He can fight southpaw, right-handed. He finds the right key, and then he takes you out. So I would say KO by round 7 or 8 for Crawford, if he can get past round 5. Otherwise, I would say KO for Spence round 5 or 6. If he comes out, hit the body, he's the smaller guy, bang that body, and just get him into such a situation like, whoa, I can't do what I want to do. He's got to take authority early and try to end it early. The later it goes, it favors Spence, and I mean Crawford, and I think Crawford KO. So I'm going to lean Crawford KO round, I would say round 8, possibly round 9. That's my gut, but I wouldn't be surprised if by round 5 or 6 that Spence can take him out if he gets in there, owns him early. And I don't see Crawford coming back from that because, again, other guys that Crawford has done that to have not had the power to knock him out, whereas Spence does. So, but I'm gonna go with my gut on Crawford KO round 8 or 9, but it'll be great action. It'll be great action up to that point. But someone's getting hurt in this fight for sure.
All right. I'm
Man,
looking forward to it, man.
I, I, I don't want to take too much time. I know we ended, man, but man, if y'all ever get a chance to, check out, my podcast on Spotify. I did break the fight down. I've been watching both guys for a long time, for a real long time. And one thing, and me being from Dallas, I've actually met Earl, and I know for a fact. I mean, he's not a small dude at all. I know, as far as the weight cut, he usually he's doing it to where he's letting the weight come off him, naturally. He's not doing a sauna or things like that. Earl is a pressure fighter, and I like to call him a pressure cooker. As the fight goes on, there's not too many fighters that get better as the fight goes on. So, and with Bud, I think he's the closest thing to Floyd when it comes down to making adjustments in there. I would say, I think early on, even in the midst of him making adjustments, I think Bud may be a little bit more dangerous early on than later on. I think Spence has the advantage later, just off the fact that his pace increases as the fight goes on. But as far as my prediction, man, this is the only 50-50 fight I see in boxing.
Right.
I've been struggling with this for about 3 or 4 or 5 years since they started talking. Man, and I know a lot of people from Dallas not gonna like this, man, but I gotta go Bud Crawford, man.
Let's go.
I gotta go Bud Crawford. I'm gonna go Terence.
It's split. It's split on social media, and even in the Metroplex, it's split.
Yeah, and truth be told, man, I do feel like come Saturday night, I think the betting odds, we may see, dead even. I've seen it in UFC fights here and there, but I think with this one, we may see dead even because, both of these guys got skills to pay the bills. Bud has stopped everybody he's fought at welterweight, and Earl has had moments where he, lack of concentration. He cannot do that against Bud, and I feel like if Bud can touch him and he hurts him, we may see Earl in some trouble. But I can say the same thing for Bud. If Bud can't take Spence punch, then it may be a rough night. But 3 days out, man, I'm gonna go Terence Crawford.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one, man.
Yeah, I'm not sure how. I'm going Bud.
As we're going out of here, man, go ahead and give the name of your podcast one more time, man.
Okay, it is the Callaway Sports Podcast. You can search me up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It's all out there. So y'all be sure to check that out, man.
Will do. Right. And before they kill us, man.
Nice meeting you. Definitely I'll be checking you out.
I look forward to doing this again, folks.
All right.
Appreciate that, Kendall.
Yes, sir. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
Yeah.
All right.
You too.
Yep.
Appreciate you again, Mr. Bennett. All right, Shawnee, you muted, bro.
Damn, my bad. I'm over here closing the side and everything. But no, I was just letting them know, appreciate them for joining us, and we'll just see them next week.
All right, y'all. Peace, y'all.
All right, peace.
Let my people go.